This video is going to show you how to make a maze in Gem Tower Defense. I'm going to explain how the maze works and how you build it. On the first round, you're going to want to build in the middle to prevent from leaking. So the 5 main squares in the center are 3 on this row. This 1 and 2 next to it. And then these 2, which is 1 square up, then another square, and 1 to the side. So you move basically half a stone up, like this gap is half a stone. So you move up like 1 block here, and then move up half, and then to the left and right half a block. So ideally you're going to want to have a malachite or a fire ruby in the center to start off with. And in some games I one-shot them, and when that happens it's great. You don't ever have to worry about leaking for the first several rounds. But I picked this game to start off because I wanted to show you if you don't have perfect luck you can still get by. So the first gem I picked was the flawed ruby, and this does enough damage to prevent from leaking the first 2 rounds if you have some support. The second rock I got was a topaz because it does multi-damage to all targets. It'll also help you a lot in the early round to prevent from leaking. The reason I didn't continue to build in the center is because of the gems I'm getting. So if you see here, I have 2 of the components of a malachite, and when I have a chance to get a third one, I'll put a square somewhere in the middle. That way if I do get the special combination, it's in the right place to combine. In this game I don't start out with any special combinations, no one-shots. A one-shot means you get all 3 components necessary to create a special tower, and instead of picking 1 gem like normal, if you have all 3 of them you can just pick all 3 at once and create that special tower. So instead what I've chosen to do is, since I had the flawed ruby to start, I'm going to try to get this ruby up, the blood ruby. And it took me 4 turns, but I was fortunate to get those 3 components without leaking. So once I got it, I upgraded immediately, spent 25 minerals, because this will prevent me from leaking, and then I can start focusing on pathing. So you notice that the first block to create outside the middle is going to be creating this wall starting from the top left and going diagonally toward the middle. So this will cause the creeps to go around the center. And that way I'm really in no danger of leaking. And now I'm probably going to try to go for that malachite, but I'm not really getting anything here, so I'll set up a component for the I forget what it's called, the thing that hits air only and creates a debuff to deal extra damage to air units. I won't need it right away, but after the first 3 core towers I'll start focusing on that. So I didn't have anything better, I just picked it. And here I have 2 components. Oh, that was my last 2. So I'm trying to get a malachite, and even though it's not where I want it, it's one of the pieces, and eventually I'll get one in the center. not much I have right now. Close to another blood ruby, but I haven't upgraded at all my gem chance, and this is because it will be easier to get one-shots when I don't have any upgraded gems. So the one-shots that are possible are the silver, which is the topaz, diamond, and sapphire, all chip level. And I want those to be around the second waypoint here, and another one close to this waypoint here. The reason to get silvers is because they have a splash damage slow, and that will help primarily during the air levels. You want them to hit the air waves right before they get through the center of your maze, which will be the damage dealing part. So if you put one here, as they make this turn, they'll get hit, slowed, and then they'll take extra damage moving through. And if you have another one up here, as they come through the top and go down, they will also get slowed right before they hit the center. So on a few air levels, it's fairly tough. Level 36 especially is when it helps out a lot. And on ground levels, they also hit from the sides and slow things going through your maze. So it looks like I'm AFK right now. I'll speed it up. This is a really long game, so I go AFK a lot in between rounds and stuff. The later rounds take forever to finish, so I'm usually not like playing this by itself. I'm usually doing something else, like watching TV or movie. So usually when I upgrade, it's to level 4, and it's after I've gotten all the primary towers that I need. I focus on getting 3 of these basic towers, either the Malachite or the blood ruby. So I usually shoot for 2 Malachites and 1 blood ruby. I think since I already have this piece, I just chose to upgrade my chances. I don't know exactly why I chose to upgrade my chances right now. Usually I wait a little bit longer, because I'm still missing this silver here, another silver here, so it would have been nice to save up. Well, for whatever reason, this game I didn't. Yeah, I don't know why. Anyway, so I picked a flawed emerald here because I want to set up the Tourmaline tower at this point. It's going to be one of the turning points of the center of my maze. This being the other turning point. And so after creating this long diagonal here, you want to create this wall on the right side to enclose the second half of your maze. And the way the maze works is that you want the first waypoint inside, and then you go inside, outside, inside, outside. So the second waypoint is going to be outside the maze, third waypoint inside, fourth outside, fifth inside. And the sixth one is outside, but there's really not much you could do between the sixth and the seventh. A long time ago, you could create like, I think it was 8 pass me's or whatever it is now, +1, by walling off from, I think, the side here. But they fixed that in a patch, so for a long time now, that's not possible. Alright, so it looks like I'm fishing here in the center to get something good. And there's not really much, but Uranium is one of the towers I want in the center, and this is one of the pieces. So you can see I don't really build in one area at once. Since the center is a really important place for all the good towers, I kind of jump back and forth between pathing on the outside to finish my maze and kind of fishing in the center for something that I want to save up and upgrade later. And as you see, all the towers, they get experience as they make kills, and they have a maximum of level 12. So when you hit that maximum, instead of gaining experience, the tower that makes the kill will distribute its experience to nearby towers. So when that happens, and it will happen fairly quickly, the towers around it will start gaining levels. And when that happens, you don't want these random junk gems that you won't be upgrading to be gaining that experience. So you want to plan ahead and put the components of towers that you'll be creating later in the center. This kind of looks random down here. It's going to fit into my maze later, but you can't really tell right now how it's going to work. And I think the most important thing about this map is to plan a maze, understand it properly, memorize it, and then know exactly where you need things to be for it to work. So my maze is going to be a spiral. It's going to go like this, coming out here. And I know exactly where I want my pieces ahead of time, so that when I get the right gems, I'll know where to place them. And that way, like, I try to leave as little up to luck as possible, because so much is dependent on luck to beat this map on Absurd, that you want to control as much as possible to optimize the luck that you do get. Otherwise, the only way to beat it is just to upgrade your gem chance really early and pray for like insanely good luck. If you don't want to just keep reloading every time you don't get luck, like, you have to make the most out of what you know you can get and what you can rely on. And so the way I build this is I bank on what I know I'm fairly certain I can get, and then I leave the rest up to chance. But like, I know I can already get so far without any luck, that when I do get luck, it will allow me to make the most of it. Here I think I'm gonna go for this ruby, because this is like the first higher level gem tower that I need, is that air debuff tower. Before that, all I really need, I'm looking for, is 2 malachites of blood ruby, a silver here, and a silver here. And that only requires chip gems, which requires no luck chance. No upgraded gems necessary. This is the only tower that's basic that requires a upgraded gem, but you can even combine 2 chips to get that. So it's not hard at all to get this blood ruby. So after this second wall is completed here, you kind of get the creeps going through your center most of the time. And then you can kind of create the spiral now. I'm going to block off this entrance here so that they have to go all the way around. And then I'll start circling around. So I'm really focusing on finishing the spiral off, because the waves are going to get harder from now on. So kind of want to finish my mazing part to stay safe. This is going to be really good later on. I think I might pick, no, I picked it. Might have picked this green just to get my air tower up. Once again, memorizing your maze is really important because that allows you to place gems exactly where you need them. Otherwise, if you're trying to like guess and figure out stuff, you'll end up with bad gems in good places and good gems in bad places. This gives me a chance to talk about debuffs in this game, slows. Slows are really important. Trying to click out of the circle. Every time I build a new tower, it creates this circle in the vision. So slows are really important to get the maximum damage because the monsters move pretty fast and they have a lot of life. Starting level 31, there's going to be 3 mini bosses each wave. Each ground wave, and they're really hard to kill, so you need to slow them down for your towers to do enough damage to kill them. And there's 3 types of slows in this map. There's emerald slow, which is green, there's sapphire slow, which is blue, and then there's a special tower slow called the uranium, which is the upgrade of this this gem. Some reason, oh, it's not showing. It's not showing the upgrade because that menu is for what I was playing, so I can't show it. But it's the upgraded version of this gem, and it's a special slow that's only possible from this tower, from this combination tower. So you want to spread out your slows across the maze, and the silver creates a sapphire slow, so you don't really need that many blue sapphire gems, but there's no special tower that creates an emerald slow, so having a few extra emeralds scattered around is going to be really helpful to kill those mini bosses. The best, what are they called? Great gem towers. You can get them by getting 2 perfect gems and then combining them in the same round. You can't combine gems that are gotten from different rounds unless they're part of like a tower or a combination. So if you get 2 gems of the same quality and type in the same round, you can combine them to get one of the higher quality of the same type. And when you get 2 perfects, it's possible to create a special tower from them when you combine both. If you have 4 of the same quality and type, you can create a gem of 2 quality higher. I've never actually gotten that with flawless, so I don't know if that'll create a great gem. But if you have 2 of the perfect, it'll create a great gem. And I've gotten 4 of like regular quality and gotten a perfect when combined. So, and there's one other tower that I've never ever gotten, and supposedly someone has gotten it, but I've never seen it ever, is I think if you have 5 perfect gems and you combine them, it'll give you this tower that just does like infinite damage. But never come across that. Supposedly you can get that. Chances are probably like 1 in infinity, so yeah, it's not gonna depend on getting one of those to beat this map. that's for sure. Anyways, you can see the spiral forming. The way it works is once one end is complete, I remove the block, open it up, and then I finish it off. So the opening switches from the left side to the right side and then back to the left side. Once this goes all the way around to here, this will come around here. Usually I try to change openings from the left to the right side on air levels, so that way if I screw up one block, I'll have a chance to fix it the next round. Because, air doesn't follow the maze, so if you leave an opening here, you'd be like, oh, just one block short, you won't leak that level. So level 20 air is kind of difficult, but you don't need to upgrade any of these towers to get by. As long as you have 3 of these basic towers, you should be able to survive it. Level 24 is the first one where you have to upgrade. You have to upgrade one of these basic towers, spending 190 or 165 minerals, because they're just too strong. I think one game I had 4 of these basic towers, 2 silvers and this air thing, and I managed to survive it without upgrading. But it's really not worth it, because you're gonna upgrade it later on anyways. So level 24 is the real first level that you have to save up money to upgrade. Oh, I got a silver here. So usually I get it one of these spots. This is probably the optimal placement for it, but I never remember exactly where that square lands, so I just put it here because it's easier to see on the map. It's right next to this T shape. Down here's fine. It doesn't really matter that much exactly where the silver goes, as long as it can hit the air before it hits the center. And I have this available to upgrade, but see, now I'm fishing for this spot and I got it, so I'm gonna create it here. And I don't really need that air thing until after level 24. So level 24, as long as you have one of these upgraded, it'll kill it, no problem, easy. Level 28, I usually upgrade a second one, and it's possible to survive if you have all the right gems and slows and stuff with just one upgraded tower. But to be safe, I usually upgrade 2. You really don't want to leak on air. You really don't want to leak before you have to, other than like the first 4 rounds when you leak 6, it doesn't really matter. But if you leak on an air round and you lose the minerals from it, it can really hold you back towards upgrading gem chances. And then you lose tower experience, and that reduces their damage somewhat, but it's mainly the gold that's important. When you're playing absurd, making the most out of the gold is really, really important. A lot of people like to go for that China Jade tower that gives you bonus gold, and the problem with that, getting that on absurd, is the tower itself does really low DPS, and you don't have that many DPS towers to survive the waves. So if you get that, it costs like 200 minerals, and that could be 200 minerals you could be actually dealing damage with. So you might never recover from getting that China Jade. Like, you could be getting maybe 50 minerals from the bonus gold after a few waves, but you probably leak like 20 creeps and that would have got you more minerals. And plus you don't have the damage from another tower, so I don't get China Jade on Absurd. If it was a lower difficulty and you had extra gold, yeah, I can see how it's useful, because then you can start doing those lucky chances more often later on. But you really have to get it early for it to be worthwhile. And in Absurd you can't get it early because you won't survive. You'll leak too much. And then the payoff's not really worth it. China Jade, I think you upgrade this gem from. And this gem by itself will actually slow more than the upgraded Jade. Yeah, this is 25%. I think the Jade does like 15% slow. Something really bad. It's just not a good gem. It has a stun chance when you upgrade it, but it's just for the gold investment, it's totally not worth it. So this is a nice perfect gem. Unfortunately, I don't have anything to support it to combine, so it's out here in nowhere, but hopefully one of these days I'll get another gem somewhere in the middle that will match up, and then I can combine them in the center. So I talked about slows. The next topic, I guess, should be buffs. And the most important buff is the Opal buff, which increases the speed of your attack of the towers next to it. So everything in this radius will get a attack speed bonus. Once I upgrade this into the Uranium, this will go away, and so I really need to look for another Opal close to the center that will give my towers attack speed bonus, because once I upgrade this, that attack speed is going to be gone, and my DPS will drop significantly when I'm attacking slowly. The next buff, actually this does more than speed, but you have to get a tower, is the, I think it's called Black Opal, Mystic Opal buff. That increases the damage of all the towers in the radius, so it's really, really good. On its own, the tower itself doesn't really do any damage. Oh, see, here I'm switching sides. Remove that block, finish this up. And I guess I should talk about this. Like, at first, when I first did this maze, I just continued this here and finished it off like that. But then I realized there's all this extra space down here that I wanted to make use of. So instead of going this bottom circle directly over here, I split it in half and make the creeps go to one side and the other before going up. And I find this actually works really well, because the hordes will go through here and then they'll get hit a lot by long range towers like Malachite. And then once the hordes die off, the bosses, the mini bosses, go through here and they kind of take more targeted damage from stuff like Tourmaline. So the way I like to set it up now, which you don't see in this playthrough, but most other ones that I do now, I put the Malachite in this spot, this spot, this spot, and that range will give it enough reach to hit this area down here. So my long range towers will be hitting the large hordes as they go through the first time. And then I'll put the Uranium, the Tourmaline, and stuff like Yellow Sapphire, I think it's called, in these more central locations, because this is a tighter spiral here, there's a tighter circle, and that means the towers here will be, towers here with a smaller radius will be hitting a single target for longer as they travel through this whole space. Whereas these longer range towers, you know, they could be standing here and hitting throughout this whole long trail. So it's kind of like mass damage goes outside, and then shorter range single target damage goes inside this tight circle. What was I talking about before I started this? It was the opal damage. Yeah, so it's important to get that. And it doesn't have to be in the center of the maze, it can be kind of outside, because you don't really want that thing getting experience. It's just there to provide the buff. You pretty much want one of almost every tower eventually, because their different buffs stack, and without slows and buffs you won't do enough damage to kill the bosses. These big guys are the bosses. I should also talk about tower alignment, or types, I guess, and the enemies. So each enemy has an alignment. You can see down here, this one's Opal, and that means towers that have the same alignment will do extra damage to them. So you can see each alignment has a weakness and a strength. It'll always deal more damage to its own alignment, and then to the opposite it'll deal less damage. So level 31 is fairly easy, because early on you get Malachites and they'll do bonus damage to them. So my level ups were level 24 for the first Malachite, level 28 for the second Malachite, or it might have been Fire Ruby, but it doesn't really matter, one of these. And then level 31, the third basic tower. The reason I upgrade the Malachites first is because they do slightly more damage than the Fire Ruby, just because of how the attacks work. This thing fires a shot, and then when it hits, it deals the damage. This thing just periodically hits things in range. So I don't know exactly why this does more damage, but I think it's because of that delay between shooting and hitting that, yeah, I don't really know. Maybe this thing fires slightly faster. But I find that these, when I look at the DPS on the display, which you can't see on the replay, but you can change in game, Malachites always do slightly more than Fire Rubies. And the second reason, because level 31's the first with the bosses, so that's an extra incentive to get these first. Because Opal is the alignment for Malachite, and 31's an Opal boss level. So the reason I have 3 towers upgraded is because level 32 is fairly hard for air, and this ensures that you can kill them without leaking. Having the red crystal here is also another important thing, and so this is a good opportunity to comment on this placement for the red crystal. I want to cover this full length of the air moving through the maze, and to cover as much of this vertical as possible. while keeping this tower out of range to soak up experience. And that brings up also a good comment is the range of leeching experience. You could see these lightning kind of displays as whenever the experience is distributed to these towers. The range for distributing experience on my maze is 2 gaps. What I mean is this tower will give experience to a tower on this square right here, that distance. I believe it'll also give experience to that distance. Not sure. I think that it does, but I know that this square it will not. That's outside its range, and it's probably within range of this one. So that means I want to avoid putting these buff towers that I don't want to have any experience within this kind of radius of 2 gaps. But if it's a sideways gap, it's far enough away, so like this won't give experience. But if it's a direct vertical distance, it's close enough. So the reason I choose to put the red crystal on one of these 2 squares, also the square and the square is good, is because when I put the Malachites here, it's exactly out of range to leech experience. This square is too close. It will leech experience from that. So otherwise this would be a great square for it, and if I put my Malachites up here, it actually is fine. But since I'm so used to putting it here and that distance doesn't make a big deal, I tend to fish on these squares for one of the red crystal components. You can see that these guys are getting a lot of level ups, and that'll be nice for when I finally get to combine them. I'm not sure what happens if you have 2 components that get enough level to exceed the maximum. So the maximum is 12 level. So let's say this gets level 6, that gets level 7 or something, and then you combine them. First of all, I don't know if that's enough to give it level 12 right away, but I think I've had situations where I combine a gem, combine a tower, and it's already level 12, and I don't know if you lose that experience or not. I'm guessing you do. So it's kind of bad to have too many of the same component, all with high levels, because when you combine them, I think you'll lose that experience. This tower, this yellow sapphire tower, gives the sapphire slow. So you don't really, once you have it, you don't really need these single gem sapphires. And this tower is great for air. It does so much damage because it's splash and it slows. It really destroys air levels. It's one of the gems, one of the towers that you want to upgrade fairly soon, because it starts off with a really small radius, but when you upgrade it, its radius expands. The other tower that you want to upgrade right away is the Uranium, which also has the same idea. It starts off with a small radius, and when you upgrade it, it expands. And because that tower gives slow debuff in its radius, it's really good to upgrade it as soon as possible. Tourmaline, same deal. Starts off with a small radius, increases when you upgrade it, but the upgrade is really expensive, so I don't always upgrade it right away. I might, for example, try to lucky chance perfect Opal to get the attack damage bonus first. So I talked about slows, damage buff, attack speed buff, talked about this air debuff. Alright, so I think we need to talk about the amethyst buff. It upgrades into a gold. That's the name of the tower. Egyptian gold, I think. And what it does is when it hits a target, it increases further damage to it by 25% for 4 seconds, something like that. So it's useful. It's not incredibly useful, but if you have it, it's good. It only hits single target, and it increases the damage by a good percentage, but it really only starts being effective once the mobs die. So it's primarily useful for clearing the higher level difficult to kill mini bosses like these, but they don't really kick in until after like 2 passes through your maze, and sometimes they don't hit all the targets all at once, so they don't get the debuff consistently. I try to put one in the center of my maze, usually close to this Tourmaline, because the Tourmaline does single damage, high single damage. I'm actually not sure how the Tourmaline works, because the beam splits off into 3, and I know it does kind of splash, but I don't know exactly how the damage ratio works. But I just know that it will really do a lot of damage to whatever it's focusing on. So I try to put the gold close to it, that way they're both hitting the same target and hopefully dealing as high damage to a single target as possible. Gold versus the black opal, definitely black opal wins, because it will increase the damage of all towers close to it, even if it's not hitting anything. As long as the towers within its radius are attacking, they'll be doing extra damage. So there's a few towers remaining that I haven't talked about. The pink diamond, gotten from upgrading the perfect diamond. It's really bad on Swarm. For damage mode, it's really good. It's like the tower that will do the most damage once your target is stunned, because it keeps critting. But on Swarm, it's just terrible. It's terrible for the obvious reasons, because there's so many minions, creeps going through the maze, that it only hits one. It only hits one target. So its overall damage output is really low. Like even the Malachite with low damage, it'll hit like 75 targets. So, you know, small number times 75 is going to be much more than slightly higher number times 1. So this is level 36 in air level that we're approaching. Every 4 levels is an air level, which should be kind of apparent by now, but I didn't specifically mention it. This is kind of a bind here, because I want that opal haste, but I also want to combine this. This tower will storm, cast Psionic Storm. Yep. Oh, another benefit of putting this red crystal in the bottom of the maze is because of this extra turn. And when you have good gems, it doesn't really matter at all. But occasionally, you'll have a few stragglers that get through here, and then this guy will just clean up maybe like 10 or 20 air that will get through your maze, and it'll save you from leaking those maybe 10 kills. Because it has this extra turn to work with, it'll hit them as they go through here. Whereas if you put it like up here or something, those guys would just run straight through. So what am I missing now? I need this upgraded, but primarily what's bothering me is I'm missing uranium and the black opal here. Usually I get uranium much before here. It's really hard to survive without uranium early on, past level 32. But I'm doing okay so far because this sapphire is kind of making up for it with its slow. If I don't get uranium soon, I'll be in big trouble. And this is where the luck really picks up, which is really key to surviving. So far up to now, we've done all that we've gotten basically without relying on any luck. I mean, this was kind of lucky, but we kind of expect within 5 or 6 rounds after getting perfect chance, a highest chance for gems. Highest quality, whatever it's called. Gem chances to max level 8, where we have the opportunity of getting a perfect gem. I kind of expect, at least 1 or 2 to drop. Sometimes you don't, and that's kind of rare, but it happens, and it really sucks because you do everything perfect, you just don't get any perfect gems. There's nothing you can really do about that. But even without relying on these, this kind of sets us up. 1, 2, 3, silver, silver, and this red crystal pretty much sets us in a good position to survive till level 35. Beyond that, we really need to get the right perfect gems at the right time. Because if you're like even one level late, you'll leak one of these bosses and they'll take away like 10 lives each, but more importantly, you'll lose gold. And if you don't hit the right gold at the right times, you can't upgrade the tower because you're just missing like 10 minerals. You can't get a lucky chance, and then you'll keep leaking further on. So if you don't get that uranium right away, if you don't get the buff towers right away, it's really hard to survive. So a lot of times with decent luck, you're just scraping by, just enough damage to kill them. And when you don't, it's really it can be frustrating. It's kind of like, ooh, when one of these guys just gets through your maze with like 1,000 health, and like these emerald greens are hitting it and they're doing like slow damage over time. You're like, just take a few more. Like, if I had maybe one more tower, they would have died, or something like that. Oh, another tower I didn't talk about is what is this called? Ruby It's the upgraded version of this tower. It does splash damage, and in my opinion, it's really, really bad. It doesn't have any buffs or debuffs. All it does is DPS, and if you don't upgrade it, its DPS is terrible. And when you do upgrade it, the DPS kind of matches what you're already getting from a Fire Ruby at level 12, which we already set up, so it's not like we're losing experience by having this level 12. We needed it before, but like the upgraded version of this at levels, I think below maybe even 5 or 6, it does less damage than the Fire Ruby. So it costs a lot, it's hard to get, and it does very little damage without any other additional benefits. Not like this, which slows, like this, which increases damage to ground targets. Wow, I don't think I actually mentioned that. So the Tourmaline aura creates a damage buff. So any targets that are in this radius, when they get hit, they take 30 extra damage. Not air, just ground. So that's why you want to diversify your towers, because you want to get the bonuses of each aura buff. And the upgraded version of the Sky doesn't provide any of that. It just does splash damage, and it attacks kind of quickly. But its DPS is just too low to be worth putting experience in early on or upgrading. So a lot of games I don't even get it. If I have the choice between getting a perfect ruby and like something like a opal, flawless opal, or just a component of any other tower, I would usually pick the other thing. Even if I get this, which doesn't do anything, but it's a component of a tower that might be useful later on, I'll get that. Because by itself, this tower just doesn't do enough. But I do see a lot of other people getting it. And if you're not playing absurd, if you're playing lower difficulty, it doesn't matter. You can get any tower you want, and it will do damage. And if you get it early, you'll get experience. So yeah, I mean, you'll probably have all the other gems because you can upgrade lucky chances earlier, so that pretty much any perfect gem tower will be good because you have the money to upgrade it. But in my experience with playing absurd, it's one of those towers that if you rely on to keep you alive, it's not going to do it. If you sink money into it and experience into this tower instead of something else, you'll leak. It's really sucks when you're like, oh, I got a perfect ruby, and then you like, this would be great, I can survive, and then you upgrade it, you give it experience, and then you're just leaking every wave, and you're like, oh, why did I trust in you? So I avoid this. On the other hand, the upgraded version of this, when you get two perfects and you combine them, what is it called? Great Ruby? Great Ruby's decent. It's not great, it's okay. The great gems are all good because you don't need to spend money to combine them into the tower. They just when you combine the two perfects, they just become that tower. So there's no extra mineral investment, which is always good, and they always have stronger damage, or at least comparable damage to one of these towers that you have to spend money to upgrade. The best great gems, at least for Swarm, is Emerald #1, because of its massive slow. The things will literally just crawl through your maze, and they'll just be like standing still while you're dealing damage to them. So Emerald #1 for the slow. I think it's 50% slow or something like that over 8 seconds. Whatever it is, it works really well. The second best is the Great Sapphire, which provides the blue color slow. And same deal, it has a huge radius. It'll hit everything on the map as it's going through your maze. And combined with the Great Emerald, things will just stand still as they're going through your maze. So those two are the best because of their slowing ability. I would rate the third one probably be the Great Topaz, because that does damage to all targets in its radius, and then the hits bounce to adjacent enemies, so it's a huge DPS tower. And then after that it's kind of like a hodgepodge. I am not sure which one I would rate highly above the others, but I'll just say that the Opal one gives extra speed to your towers. That's pretty good. The Aquamarine also gives speed, but I don't think it's as good as the Opal one. It's great if you already have perfect Opal, because that offers a different type of speed, so they stack, which is the real advantage of it. The Aquamarine, great Aquamarine, I think, tower. It stacks with the Opal speed, and it's one of a kind, so you can't get that from any other tower. Opal is the only speed buff available besides that Aquamarine great gem. So that's its advantage. The diamond one gives a buff similar to the Tourmaline. It increases ground damage that ground units take in its radius by something like 15%, so it's not as good as this. So it's meh, it's not that great. And what else is there? Amethyst is the air one. It will lift, every once in a while, it will lift an enemy up into the air, and that enemy will still move as a ground unit through your maze, but it will take damage as if it was air. So these things will hit it. This red crystal will hit it, and it will also be affected by this debuff. That one is also meh, because for the same reason that the gold is okay. It's not that great. It's single target, and it really only kicks into effect doing what you need after the mobs have been all cleared. So it usually takes like 2 or 3 passes through your maze later on for it to hit those mini bosses. And the damage itself is single target, so it does okay damage. It won't really save your life if you're already losing. That's the problem. If you're doing okay, it will help you kill the bosses, but it's not really high priority. And I feel like I'm missing something else, but there's not much to say about the other ones. Great Ruby just does DPS. It does splash and hits 3 targets. It doesn't do as much damage as the Great Topaz, so it's okay. Yeah, this is a really poor choice, questionable choice. I don't know why I lucky chance for an amethyst. Right now I really need that opal. I think you need to deal at least 5 million damage to survive. 5 million damage at the last stage where it counts your damage to survive this map. What's amazing to me isn't really like doing high damage and beating the game. What's amazing to me is when you deal really low damage and you can still survive. Because it's really hard to kill these things, and if your damage is low, like, it's really hard to survive till the end. And these things take forever to finish dying. Wow, my game's lagging a lot as I'm increasing the speed. So I still haven't leaked yet, which is kind of surprising. But I know I'm going to if I don't get something good right away. I'll take perfect emeralds and just not upgrade them because their range and slow are more useful than the... Oh, that's the tower I didn't talk about. Than the upgraded combined tower, which is a dark emerald that provides stun. On damage, that's like one of the best towers you can get, but on swarm, it's not good. This perfect emerald itself is much better than the combined one because it has a larger range and it'll slow the targets as they're moving through your maze. Whereas the upgraded version occasionally stuns it, and that's good if you have just one target, but when you have 3 of these mini bosses, like sometimes it just stuns it, and then instead of spreading out the 3, it'll cause them to clump, and if you don't have splash towers, it'll do less damage overall. And sometimes if you have splash towers and they're clumped, it'll hit one of them and it'll like slow down so that you do less damage because now they're not all getting hit by the same splash. So it's not that good. It's not as good as just long time slow, more consistent debuff. If I already have a perfect emerald, I'll still get it. I won't avoid it. But if I don't have better slows, then I'll just keep it like this. Yeah, I can't think of much else to talk about right now. I think I've covered most of what I want to say about this map. Kind of just to recap what's important. 2 Malachites and a Fire Ruby. Now I sometimes go 3 Malachites and a Fire Ruby, because at the end, when you see the damage output DPS, one of these towers does comparable damage to any one of these upgraded higher level towers. Uranium, level 12, 235, the upgraded version, does the most damage by itself. But if you have a second one, it's not going to have level 12 experience. It just, there's no way, it's too hard to get 2 of them early enough to both have level 12. So the second one will be doing less damage than one of these. These are actually really good DPS towers, even though they're basic and you can get them at level 1. The range, coupled by the fact that they deal damage to all targets, makes them really good DPS. And then basically you want to get enough of these to deal enough damage, and then you want to get these higher levels for their buff benefits and their single target damage. So you see this does up to 1200 damage, where this only does 330. So they're mostly for killing these bosses. So after you get your 3 to 4 basic towers, Malachites and Fire Rubies, you want to go for the silvers on the edges of the maze to slow the air. You don't really need one on this side because the air always moves this way from left to right and then from up to down. But later on, if you get another one, or if it just single shots, putting one here is fine so that it'll slow the ground more uniformly through the center. After the basic towers, kind of priority towers for perfect gems, upgraded combined towers is Uranium, number 1, because primarily for its slow, coupled by the fact it does the most DPS in the game. Then there's no real, in my mind, there's no real number 2. There's a lot of things that will work. Black Opal is a really good choice because it'll buff all these damage towers. Sapphire is a really good choice because it will help you clear the air, and it has a slow, and I would say it's a good DPS. Sometimes this has the highest DPS last level, because if all the bosses stack and does splash damage, it'll be really high. So I'd say number 1, number 2, Black Opal, number 3, Sapphire, number 4, Tourmaline. The reason Tourmaline is higher because you need a lot of components to combine it, which you should pretty much get. All you're missing is the perfect before level 33 or whenever you can get the perfect. But the reason I wouldn't rate it that highly is because it costs too much to upgrade, and if you don't upgrade it, it's not that great. The damage is low and the radius is small, and the damage debuff isn't that strong. Not as strong as the Black Opal. And the fact that it does kind of single damage, maybe 3 target damage, whereas this all do splash damage to all targets in its area. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I don't know, beyond that it's just kind of a toss-up. It's whatever you can get, basically. I think if you have these 4 upgraded perfect gem towers, you should be set to survive at least until now. And you can see in this game I don't have the Black Opal, but I've survived. I'm going to take over this game from this point. Okay, let me see if I can get that Opal. Perfect. Opal. Lucky chanced. Okay, good. Increases damage by 30%. Really, really useful. It's not so much this does any damage by itself, it's just it increases this damage of the core towers. So after I upgrade this, I'm kind of just going to be fishing for great gems. So my guidelines on that are, oh wow, lucky chance level 3. I usually don't get that much. I usually upgrade it to level 2. Level 1 occasionally will be okay, but I find it misses too much of the time that I prefer to upgrade it to level 2 before getting going for the lucky gem chance. But it can happen where you just lucky chance level 1, sometimes in desperation, and you get what you need. And the way I go about it is, if I get one perfect gem early on in my gem selection, maybe first or second pick, and it's an emerald or a sapphire, something really good, I'll just upgrade that lucky chance for the same type and try to get a great gem. If it doesn't work, it sets you back, but it's a risk reward kind of thing. If you do get it, it can really secure your game for the rest of the waves, because of how much damage and slow that tower will provide. Topaz, I do the same thing. Ruby, probably not, but emerald, sapphire, topaz are probably the 3 that if I get one perfect early on, I'll try to lucky chance for a second one. And I've gotten those enough times that I think it's really worth it to risk it. And you don't get that many chances to get great gems in the game, so if you don't get it, you might lose, but you just don't get that many opportunities to go for a great gem. So if I get a perfect early on, I usually go for it, and when I do get it, it really pays off. The other times to go for lucky chance gems is pretty much desperation. Like if you're not getting the uranium, if you're still stuck on 3 basic towers and it's level 35, there's really no way to survive with just basic towers beyond level 36. So you have to do something about it, and if that means that you spend all your money on lucky chances each turn, well, you kind of have to, because you're going to lose anyways if you don't get it. Alright, so I got another component to this. Yeah, it seems like the most reasonable option. At this late in the game, the experience from the mobs isn't that much to gain, so I'll just build everything in the center. There's only 4 more waves where I can build stuff, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Whatever it is, I'll just take what the best is. But before that, I kind of build maybe 1 or 2 in the center, and I'll build outside so that if I don't get something good, I can just at least pick a bad gem somewhere else so it doesn't take up a spot for something good later on. So this was like from the level 3 or 4 in the game where I got this, and I never actually used it because I was lucky enough to get something here. But you never know. In some cases, you might get one of the other components here, and then you'll need this. This guy was probably from level 2 in the game. Never used that. But the thing that you can see, the best part is only took 1 kill. So this guy has, it has 20 kills, wow. But it's not leeching experience off of these towers, which I'm relying on to win me the game. So even early on, you can avoid leaking if you don't have a lot of luck. you don't really have to pick a bad gem in the center and have it kind of clog up your maze, mess up your positioning. You can still pick something like this early on to survive, and then never use it really later on, but not have it get in the way. The silver has no level, only has 16 kills, but it's been providing slow consistently. This guy too, so this is how good placement will help out your wave. This guy level 1, so he has 33 kills from the guys that are weak coming down here. I always prefer it not to get those kills, but if it's gonna leak instead, yeah, just get those kills on this tower, because you don't want to be losing that gold from those creeps. This guy has no level, this guy has no level. So placement is fairly good throughout this game. In the center, level 11, almost maxed. This guy level 0, level 0, level 0, level 1. So not too much experience leeching by these weak towers. Uranium's pretty low, but we got it very, very late. We would like this to be level 12, but what can you do? I think the ideal placement for this is probably in that spot. Maybe here. I think I like this slightly better. This has its benefits because it's on a turn, in the center of a turn, but I think this has better benefits because it's providing more coverage to the center and to this larger spiral area. So I'm not sure exactly which one is better, but as long as you have it somewhere in the middle here, it should be good. Alright. There's nothing good here. Amethyst, nope. Pink diamond, nope. Sapphire, nope. Let's get a sapphire. Topaz, I mean. So this is kind of like being a little fancy here at the end, where I have nothing really else to do with my pathing. But it doesn't really do anything. Similar down here, some games I can move this square here and then path my way up the side. Doesn't really add much extra DPS, but some games I'm just tired of the same old maze and I try to change it up a bit, add a few sections here and there, see how well they work. For the most part I stick to this plan, this maze. Before I got to this maze I did different things, and I've tried mazes where you just go like left to right, kind of straight lines, and that's okay. That has a good benefit because everything's in one line, so everything's fairly close together. And some vertical kind of mazes go up and down. Tried those. The reason that I like the spiral primarily is because it has a nice block off on the left and right side. Like the way the blocks fit into it perfectly, I really like that. how you can fit exactly this many spiral loops into this region from here to here. The circle pattern of it is nice too, so I picked spiral primarily because of the tourmaline, because I wanted to get the maximum range out of this hit. And if you follow its path, you can see starting here it just pretty much follows the entire time, so the beam is charging up for this entire duration, and it will be hitting max damage as much as possible. That's the primary reason I picked the spiral. And I like this implementation of it because it puts 3 squares here close to the center, which can be hitting pretty much all the areas down here and up here. And the difficulty of one of these spiral things is you have a lot in the center, but you can't put all of them directly in the center. So like something out here is just not as good as something right here. It focuses like these central pieces to do the most damage, but then the pieces out here don't have that great position. So I think that's the weakness of the spiral. But this implementation is good because I think these 3 are great positions for the Malachites, because they'll be able to hit stuff down here and their range will hit stuff in the spiral. So it kind of gets the best of that straight line maze setup and the spiral setup. Alright, so I've got these towers. I leaked 3. Diamond's really hard, so I kind of expect that. I'm probably not going to survive this game, but I'm missing the amethyst, so I might want to just lucky chance that guy. Nothing. Too bad I don't have a ruby. I could do dark emerald. I don't think that'll really help though. I'll go with the dark emerald option. Try for amethyst one more time. There we go. Its positioning's kind of bad, but at this point I just have to take it. So I have to make it this level and 1 more level to survive. And I have basically 4 lives, because each boss takes 10 lives. I can let 4 bosses leak, so if I can kill one of these bosses and 1 more on the next level, I'll make it to the end. I really don't think it's going to happen, but it might. So why haven't I? I think this being level 9 instead of 12 is a strong reason. I think getting this late is another reason. Like, I don't really expect to have anything better than what I have right now, except this being upgraded. But the problem was I leaked 3 bosses before this point. If I was at the 55 life, I think I'd be okay. So once you leak, you really have to get like a great gem to make up for it, or just at least a lot of good towers. There's just not that many towers that you can possibly create in a game, because the number of gems you have is limited. You only have 50 gems to work with. That's why having those early single shots are really useful, and why great gems are so good, because you can just combine them in one turn and you have a tower, so you don't have to kind of save several gems to create it. But other than what I have so far, I'm not really missing that much. Maybe this upgraded. I have most of the gems that I need. I have the 4 main towers. What else am I missing? I have an emerald slow. I could have a perfect opal, which would help out. Sapphire is decent enough. This could be upgraded. So I'm almost there at exactly all the stuff I can get. Without having great gems. And that's just barely enough just to be able to survive. It should be barely enough to be able to survive. If I hadn't leaked on diamond those 3 bosses, if I had only leaked 1, I would survive no problem. If I had leaked 2, I'd probably survive too, but right now it's not looking that good, because these guys are going to go through. Yeah, if I leak all of these, I'm not going to be able to kill all the bosses on Emerald. So that's the end of the game. But it is possible to beat this game without any great gems. To beat it without leaking without any great gems, I don't think it's possible. It'd be really, really hard, I think. But it's definitely possible without any great gems to beat it. You expect to leak on this wave and the wave before it either 5 or 6 bosses. So you kind of have to have a perfect life. You have to have 75 life coming into it. Maybe leak 1 on diamond. But I think this kind of game is better to show than one of the games where I one-shot a Malachite round 1 and I get great gems early on. Because when you see those, it's like, yeah, I mean, if everything works out perfect, then no, what do I do if it doesn't happen? And this is kind of more a situation when you don't have perfect luck and you have harder choices and you kind of get stuck for a while, and to see this kind of game and then what you can do with it, I think is more informative. And when you see the waves don't die and you see the bosses leak, and you kind of understand really how hard it is, and you kind of get a better sense of how much damage you need to do and why stuff like just getting this doesn't really work, doesn't bring you far enough. Because when you just see like those really perfect games where you get everything good early on and then you get good luck, it seems easy, and it's hard to compare with a more realistic game where you don't get good luck and then you think like, well, how you ask, how good a luck do I really need to beat the game? And it's like, well, how do I do better with what I have instead of just getting something really lucky? Oh man, I'm 5 minerals off of upgrading this. Yeah, this guy's so tough to kill. Well, unfortunately, it didn't survive, but came pretty close, getting to the last level. It's a good illustration of how strong those guys are and why you need certain gems in the game to stay alive. And it's a good kind of comparison to see between a normal game and a lucky game, the difference and what you can expect from it and what you can do with it. So I try to explain as much as I could about what's important in making a maze. I'm sure I probably missed explaining some things that I'm pretty used to and might not be obvious for a beginner or just somebody who hasn't tried my maze. But I think you can tell from the spiral how the maze is built. The ordering isn't all that important as long as you know exactly ahead of time how the maze is going to look in the end. It's not really step by step, you have to build this at certain wave or you have to build this part at a certain wave. It's more just like if you have the right towers, then you don't need to build in the middle anymore. You can maze on the outside as long as the center is safe. If your center isn't safe, you have to kind of build more in the center until you get good towers there. And then if you have like two of the right combination, then you place the third one in the center to fish around for a good tower. So it would be less informative, I think, to say like, at wave 5 build 3 towers in the center and 2 on the outside, because not all games are going to be like that. But the general principle is the same. Is you try to get one basic tower upgrade in the center first, you get a diagonal so that they go through it twice, and then you're safe, and then you path on the outside. Every time you get 2 of the 3 combination pieces, you put a third in the center exactly where you want it to be later on, and then you just make choices about which is the gem that you want to put in the center. Sometimes you take a chance and you fish around in the center for something you want later on, and then you prioritize what you need. So 3 Malachites, silvers, star ruby, then you go for the uraniums, the tourmaline, the black opals, the yellow sapphires, and all that other stuff, and you just kind of build, plan, and fish as you go along. And with luck, you get enough gems to survive to the end.